city to city, country to country, on the world's local television network. It's his Channel Live.
So this was my process. It was very evidential.
Okay.
And I felt that the process that I took was akin to what Christ would ask me to do anyway. Let me explain why I say that.
Please do.
It seemed to me, looking at Acts 1, which I have tabbed here. Let me, I put my eyes back on.
Yes.
But let me put my eyes on and read Acts 1,
Okay.
verses 2 and 3. So it's easy to remember Acts 1, 2, 3.
Very good.
Here's what it says.
Okay.
It says in Acts, I'll start in verse 3 just to make it easier.
Okay.
After his suffering, he showed himself, this is Jesus now, to these men, these are the apostles and disciples. He showed himself to these men and gave many convincing proofs that he was alive.
That's right.
He appeared to them over a period of 40 days and spoke about the kingdom of God. So here we are. Imagine this now. Jesus has been resurrected. He spent 3 years performing one miracle after another with these folks. Yet at the point following the resurrection, he still feels compelled to spend 40 days giving convincing proofs.
Yeah.
This is obviously somebody who values our evaluation of convincing evidences, convincing proofs.
Yeah.
So I felt that this was something that I could do without
Yeah.
betraying the kind of Christian worldview of how I might actually embrace my faith.
Kindred spirit.
Yeah, so I felt like this
Evidence.
is, and if you look at the Gospels, you can see a couple other spots.
Right,
John 14:11 is another good example, for example, of how Jesus values evidence, where he says, "Believe me when I say that I am in the Father and the Father is in me," or at least believe on the evidence of the miracles themselves.
Exactly. Yeah.
So if you don't trust what I'm saying,
Look what I'm doing.
I've given you good evidence
Yeah.
to believe that I am who I say I am.
Exactly.
And so I felt like it was fair for me then, as a new believer, to be looking at the evidence and evaluating the claims of Christ. And so I spent time doing that, and I felt at the end of that process that, number one, I was a Christian, and I had given myself to Christ. And I understood really for the first time who I really was. And it's not that I came to the cross feeling broken. It's not that I came to the cross feeling as though I needed a fix. I didn't know my own depravity. To be honest with you, I thought I was a good guy.
Yeah.
But it wasn't until I started to look at the nature of man as the Scripture is presented. When you start reading through 1 Corinthians, you start reading through Romans, when I started to realize that I was the natural man who really was blind to the evidence that was always in front of me, then I realized that I had need that only Christ met. Now, what's interesting about that process is, and since this has happened, I have talked to many Christians who have kind of said, you're an evidentialist. Your faith is pretty weak.
Yeah.
Because there's a sense that faith that has no evidential footing is real faith. And faith like mine that requires a careful read, for example, that's not real faith.
That's the crutch. Huh?
That's somebody who's got a pretty weak faith. You need to be proved to all the time. Prove it to you. And the reality of it is that I think that I'm not saying that I was ever clever enough to figure out that this was true. Because I'm telling you, before God flipped the switch for me, I suspect I would have read this Bible and seen it a different way.
Sure.
Because my eyes were so blinded to the truth that I don't think that I would have ever seen the evidence for what it was. But in the end, it was the evidence that that compelled me. But clearly, I don't attribute that to my own wisdom. I attribute that to the wisdom and the power of God, who did that in my own life. But on the back side of that, as a Christian now, I believe evidence plays an important role for you and I.